Hello everyone and welcome to my labour and delivery story. Firstly, I'm going to just talk about the kind of lead up to my labour, then when I was actually in labour, and sort of a little bit of like kind of my recovery after labour as well. I've also got my little baby with me. He's here. Can't really. I don't want to like lift him up too much. This is little Albie. He is 4 weeks old now. I am doing this a little bit after, obviously, I've been in labour. It's just because those first few weeks are like a minefield and you just want to kind of get into some sort of routine, and making a video was not at the top of my list. So I'm doing it now, but it's given me a chance to kind of like settle myself and actually really remember what labour was really like, rather than kind of just have gone through all of that pain and then go, oh my god, it was dreadful, because it really wasn't that bad. To begin with, I was due on the 4th of December. Basically, I kind of like convinced myself he was coming early or on time. So I did it kind of get to the point where the 4th of December hit and I was like, right, I'm having my baby now. And I really just wanted him out and I was ready to have him. So uncomfortable. I couldn't sleep at night. I mean, I don't really sleep that much now, so I don't know why I was moaning, but I couldn't sleep at night. I was, you know, really frustrated and just really ready to have my baby, and I just wanted to meet him and cuddle him, and I just had enough of being pregnant, really. So 4th of December hit, no sign of baby. Had a bit of a false alarm, but I think it's all in my head, and I was convincing myself I was having contractions, but really they were just the practice contractions, which are Braxton Hicks, which, having a baby before, you'd think I'd know that, but I didn't. That false alarm kind of like put a bit of a downer on it all, and I kind of just was a bit fed up come kind of like the 5th, 6th, 7th of December. Got to the 8th of December, kind of gave up and thought, I am never having this baby, which is really stupid, because of course he was coming and he was gonna come at some point, whether I liked it or not. So it was silly for me to really kind of like sit there and be really annoyed and almost depressed about it. Like, I was getting myself really down, and I just really wanted to have my baby, and I was getting really upset that he wasn't coming, and it was just making me really moody and really annoyed all the time, and it just wasn't nice. I mean, I should have enjoyed those last few days of being pregnant and enjoyed the pregnancy, but I didn't, and it was kind of like I was almost really sort of frustrated with myself that I didn't. So once I'd kind of got, you know, got myself sort of really down and upset about it, I was kind of like, right, I'm not having this baby. Got to the 8th of December, woke up around 2:30. It wasn't unusual for me during pregnancy at all. I was waking up a lot. So waking up about 2:30, it didn't really strike any alarm bells. I didn't sort of think, oh, maybe this is contractions, or maybe it's the baby coming. I didn't even think like that at all. Toilet, came back upstairs, got back into bed, and I felt a bit of a pain, kind of like in my lower pelvic area. It only lasted for a few seconds, and I just thought, oh, Braxton Hicks again. So I kind of just tried to doze back off to sleep. A few seconds later, I got another one, and it was a little bit stronger this time, and it did last a little bit longer. So I was kind of like, well, that's odd. And then I got another one, and another one, and another one. So they carried on coming, these pains did, and they were coming really frequently as well. So I gave my husband a bit of a nudge, and he was like, yeah, just wake me up when you've had a few more, because obviously I'd been so annoyed about not having him. I'd been convincing myself for weeks and weeks that he was coming and he was contracted. I'd say, I think it was about 3 o'clock, they were unbearable. I could still talk through them. I wasn't screaming, it wasn't pain I couldn't deal with, but it was also a real kind of, right, this is something happening. This isn't something like, this isn't these practice contractions. It's nothing like that. It was kind of one of those things where I had to make a decision whether I thought these were real labour pains or not, so whether to ring the hospital or not. And then the next thing I get a really strong pain. and that one knocked me kind of on my knees, and I was a bit like, oh yeah, no, this is definitely, I remember this pain from last time, this is it. So I kind of was a bit excited because I was thinking, oh, like, we're gonna have the baby, and it was nice to feel that excitement. But then another pain came again really quickly, and then another one and another one, and it just kept coming like that. Breather at all, there was no break in my contractions. But the reason for that was my labour was happening very, very fast. So me, my mum and my husband went off. My dad stayed at home to look after Jake. Obviously Jake was in bed at this point. In the car I was convinced I really wanted pain relief because I was really struggling, I felt, this time. With Jake, I only had gas and air, and I only had gas and air for the very last part of the labour because I laboured at home and went in just before I was in the active stage of labour. Albie's like dead in my arm. We got there, my husband kind of like kicked us out at the door. The whole way is covered in speed bumps, by the way, which is, I don't know if any, you know, if you're watching this and you've been in labour, you think of when you're in the very end part of labour and imagine going over speed bumps. Honestly, worst like 10 minutes of my life was, I was kind of like propped up on the seat. And my mum was like dying not to laugh at me, and so was my husband, because they found it hilarious of it me. So I think they valued their lives more than anything and didn't really want to laugh. Get up there, and I hadn't had him in the car, which was great. Got there, he kind of chucked us out at the door. He was like, I'll go park the car, you make your way. We'd kind of buzzed in, and I think they could tell by the fact that I was like keeling over at the door that I was pretty far gone. So we got in the lift. Whilst in the lift, I was telling my mum I really needed a wee, and then the next thing, I just like, what I assumed was wetting myself, but it wasn't. It was my waters had broke. So I was really embarrassed and really annoyed that I like had wet myself, even though I was about to go and give birth in front of like, you know, 3 or 4 people, and 3 of those would be like strangers. So, you know, the things that you think about during labour. You'd think there'd be more concerns on my mind than the fact that I just wet myself, but it was a big deal, and I felt a bit embarrassed and a bit like, oh no, like I'm gonna have to change my clothes and all the rest of it, and what if it's not labour and I've just weed myself and all the rest of it. And my mum was like, oh, just shut up, calm down, we'll be fine, we'll be there in a second. We kind of got in there, I kind of ran to the door practically, and the midwife was really lovely, and she was kind of holding the door open because obviously they have like the buzzer system where obviously the door's locked, you have to press the buzzer, say your name while you're there. But obviously because I'd said my name downstairs, I think they could see on the cameras that I was pretty, you know, in some sort of labour at least. So they kind of had the door open, and she was like, oh dear, are you okay? And it was lovely to kind of see like a really friendly face and somebody that was actually really quite sort of not concerned but sympathetic of your pain. And she was sort of very like, come on, let's get you in a room, let's get you on a bed, and we'll get a midwife into you. And she was really nice, and it made me kind of almost relax a little bit, because I kind of did, as soon as we got to the hospital, all the breathing and everything I'd done in the car kind of just went out the window, and I started to panic again, because I was kind of thinking like, I can feel a lot of pressure and this feels like the baby's coming. For the first start of him coming out, his head basically is what was happening, and that's why I wanted the gas and air, because it was quite painful at this stage, of course. Sorry, it's like dead in my arm. And then so I kind of took control of everything and kind of sat myself on the bed. Of course, they can't give you any kind of like pain relief or anything until they know how far into labour you are, because they have to be careful of kind of not giving you pain relief too early on, basically, if you're not even in labour and they just let you have the gas and air, basically. So eventually, I think as soon as I got on my back, I had a gown on. I had a lovely midwife on my left who was on my right, sorry, on my right, who was kind of, and I got my gown on, and the next thing I know, also hear the midwife saying is, oh, I don't think we need to do an internal examination, we have a head. And I had actually managed to push his head out without even realising. And then about 2 seconds later, it felt like, I think it was about a minute later, his body followed. I don't even know if it, yeah, it was about a minute later, his body followed, and that was it. My beautiful baby boy, Albie, was born. His full name is Albie James Snowdon, and he was born on the 9th of December, and he weighed a massive £8.12. Recovery wise, I was only in the hospital till 4 o'clock the next day. That was just because they wanted to check a few things, but once they'd done all those checks, I was fine to go home. Obviously me and Albie were fine to go home. We got home, introduced him to his big brother. His big brother was like really pleased and really happy to see his little brother, which we were quite shocked by because we weren't sure what he'd make of it. But he was actually really happy, and he was going, oh baby, so he really knew what was going on, and that was nice. Like, I think it made me a bit teary. I don't know if that's the hormones, but it did make me a little bit teary. We got back, and we kind of like, for the next couple of weeks I kind of lived in a bit of a cocoon and just stayed in and got used to my new baby, and let his big brother get used to him, and sort of trying to like incorporate Jake into Albie's life and make sure that Jake knows that Albie's not here to steal Jake's attention, and you know, he's here as part of him and someone for him to play with and look after too. And actually that worked really well. He seems to really get on with him, and he doesn't get jealous. I am breastfeeding him, so it can be difficult at times, but Jake's actually really helpful, and he doesn't sort of like demand my attention, or he doesn't get really annoyed if I've kind of got Albie. If I'm like, oh, can you wait a minute, Jake, mummy's just feeding Albie, he's like, oh, the baby, and then gives him like a pat on the head and a bit of a kiss, and that's really nice. As a mum, it's lovely to sense like it made the recovery a lot easier. Like the mental recovery, because sometimes you can suffer from baby blues. I definitely did with Jake. I didn't at all this time. If anything, I felt this like overwhelming feeling of love, and I just constantly felt this rush of love, and like, I don't know, I just felt really happy and really like proud of the two little children that were mine and that we had made together. It was just a really nice few weeks, and I think if we do have another one, I would definitely do the same thing again, because I did cope a lot better mentally, and I did cope a lot better generally. Physically, my recovery was a little bit longer than with Jake. I think with Jake it was only about a week and I was back to normal and everything was fine down there. Obviously when you have a, you know, normal delivery, so a vaginal delivery, they do say your recovery time is a lot quicker than if you were to have kind of a C-section or an emergency C-section, or if you have any sort of intervention. I don't know if it was something to do with how quick he came, but he did tear me on the way out, and that kind of took a bit longer to heal than I had thought. So I obviously had stitches, so that's not really nice, and really uncomfortable down there. So that became really comfortable, and that just made the recovery a little bit longer than what it would have been. But overall, my recovery was really quickly, and I would say I was back to my normal self after about 2 weeks, bar the bags under my eyes and the mess my hair was constantly in. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope you've liked the video, and I will hopefully see you in my next one.